In terms of expectations, I think, and this is a problem a lot of mainland Indians do, that I had gone to Guwahati previously, so people just assume that, okay, it might be similar to that, but it was absolutely different. And Nagaland has its own culture, which I got introduced to, and I was very, very excited because it was all so new. And one of the first things that I noticed was that people loved to talk to each other at all times. So, for example, if you're crossing somebody as well, you won't cross them without acknowledging their presence. So, for example, they'll always say hey, or they'll say lado, as in where are you going. This was quite a surprise for me because before that, whenever I stayed in cities, people have become very individual in the way that they live. So, on public transport, everybody will be busy on their phones and they will never interact with other people. So, that was the second observation that I made.
Today, right now, we're glad to have a young man originally from Delhi, and he has been living in Nagaland, and that too, a village in Tuensang district. He'll tell us all the details, but for the past nearly 1 year. So, Mr. Jatin, can you fully introduce yourself, your name, please, and where you came from?
So, first off, Chang Mai, because that is good morning in the Chang dialect. My name is Jatin, but mostly I am referred to by people here as Changsang, and that is the local name which is being given by the community as part of their acceptance.
Great. So, in Tuensang district, which village, and can you also fill up the gaps?
I have been posted at Hakchang village, which is 1.5 hours away from the Tuensang district headquarters.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background? You know, I heard that you have done mathematics in Hindu college, and what motivated you to work in Tuensang?
So I ended up initially, my childhood and my schooling was done in a lot of different places. So I have lived in Patna, I have lived in Delhi, I've lived in Lucknow, I've lived in Guwahati also for some time. So there has been a holistic exposure that I've gotten throughout. Now, once my college got done and I got done with mathematics honors in Hindu college, I decided to work in the social sector. And that's what I did initially, and I started working in Delhi. But I realized after some time that I don't want to be working in the social sector just sitting in AC rooms and people just deciding things from their comfort. I wanted to go actually to the grassroots. And that's when I discovered this fellowship. And SBI Foundation runs this fellowship called Youth for India, in which there were about 1 lakh applicants, and they selected 90 out of those. Okay. And those 90 are then placed in different parts of the country in different villages.
So, how come you selected Northeast and that of all places Tuensang?
Because there's a lot of scope to work here. And the thing is, although this fellowship has been running for the past 15 years, nobody had come to Nagaland until now. And with Nagaland, this is the first time that SBI Foundation sent somebody. And that's why we ended up reaching here, and we are associated with an NGO. So ECS, run by Dr. Chingmak, is the NGO that we got associated with. And because it concentrates around Eastern Nagaland, so that's where there's a lot of scope to work as well. And this decision turned out to be correct as well, because when we traveled from Dimapur to Tuensang, we realized that it took a total of 12 hours, and we could see the difference between Western Nagaland and Eastern Nagaland as well. Therefore, just further confirming the fact that there's a lot of scope to work.
So the foundation, I mean, does it work only with villagers, or what? Can you give a little bit about that?
Sure. So SBI Foundation ends up working in a lot of different programs, but this is a specific program which is called a Rural Development Fellowship. So in this, they ask you to stay in the village, and they make it a point so that you actually get the ground level exposure. So I am a fellow, I'm placed at the village, so I'm supposed to then design a project of my own. After spending some time in the village and realizing what are the needs of that village, I can make a project, and then I have 13 months to implement that project in that location.
So you're among the first Youth for India Fellowship to be posted in Nagaland. And so when you first arrived in Hakchang village, like you said, 1.5 hours away from Tuensang, what were your expectations, and how was it different from your expectations?
Sure. In terms of expectations, I think, and this is a problem a lot of mainland Indians do, that I had gone to Guwahati previously, so people just assume that, okay, it might be similar to that, but it was absolutely different. And Nagaland has its own culture, which I got introduced to, and I was very, very excited because it was all so new. And one of the first things that I noticed was that people loved to talk to each other at all times. So, for example, if you're crossing somebody as well, you won't cross them without acknowledging their presence. So for example, they'll always say hey, or they'll say lado, as in where are you going. This was quite a surprise for me, because before that, whenever I've stayed in cities, people have become very individual in the way that they live. So on public transport, everybody will be busy on their phones and they will never interact with other people. So that was the second observation that I made.
Yes. I mean, even in towns and even in some places in Nagaland also, it's like that in urban places.
Yeah.
The people of Hakchang village have given you a name, right? And so why did he give you the name, and can you tell us what it means?
The name was given as Changsang, and Changsang is the place which is considered as the origin of the Chang tribe. It's actually a place which is around 40 minutes away from Hakchang. And the thing is that there people initially tried to call my real name as well, Jatin, and it was said as Chutney. So they realized that because Changsang is a common name there, and they ended up calling me Changsang. So now every single person in the village. So to the point that now when I talk to my friends back in Delhi on video calls, I tell them that I now respond to Changsang more than I respond to Jatin, because that's how much of an acceptance it has come in me.
So what's the population of village, and most of the people know you by now?
Yeah. So the population of the village is around 1400, and that's what I realized, that the first thing that I need to do before any sort of work is to understand the village and to understand the people. So I started attending all the functions which are happening. I started going to church every Sunday so that I can meet the community, so that I can properly end up interacting with people. So yeah, by this point, people do know me.
When you first arrived in the village, how did you adjust to it? And then were you taken by a family, or what was the arrangement?
The NGO helped with this, and we were put up with a family whose kids have now migrated to Kohima or Dimapur, so they had rooms empty. So I started living with the family, and the family actually started treating us like one of their own. But now I'll talk about one challenge which I faced: language. Because the moment I arrived at the village, I realized that neither Hindi or English will work here.
Right.
So I started learning Chang, even more than Nagamese, because Chang was what was spoken primarily in the village, because it just had Chang tribe. Therefore, I found a young girl in the village, 21 years old, who started teaching me Chang. So I would take tuitions with her every day, 1.5 hours. I would write down notes on how to translate from English to Chang. And then around in 2 months, I was able to have some sort of a grasp on Chang.
Okay. Isn't there a dictionary, Chang and English dictionary also?
There is, but the thing is, it also varies from village to village. So for example, I was told so many things that just on the basis of tone and the pronunciation, also things get very different. So I had to learn from somebody from the village, so that people can understand me and I can understand people.
Got it. It's like that in most Naga villages, the tone changes from village to village, stuff like that. So Changsang, you've been living in the village for 7 to 8 months now. So what has been your daily routine like? What do you do?
I think that is one of the best parts, that I don't have a fixed daily routine. So every morning when I get up, I make it a point to understand what the community is doing that day, and then I make my day according to that. So for example, I realized that community is a big part, and helping each other is a big part of the culture here. So for example, if there's a wedding, if there's a funeral also, how the entire villagers would come together and then help out everybody. It doesn't matter whose house the function is in. So I started doing those same things, and I started attending those small meetings as well to understand more about the community. And
even funerals, weddings.
Yeah, even funerals.
Everyone.
Yeah, everyone.
Achha.
And it's so nice that now I am considered as a proper part of the village. So they properly invite me also, that Changsang has also supposed to be there. So what I ended up realizing, that the villagers, it was also a very new experience for them. Because what they were used to, maximum was that, okay, somebody comes here, stays for 1 week, does some research, writes down some things and then goes back. So the biggest surprise that people found initially was the duration that I'm staying for. 1 year. And they were very, very surprised that this person will be staying with us in our village for 1 year. And slowly, of course, they got used to it and they were very welcoming.
Just a normal day, supposing there is no wedding, no funeral, nothing. So what do you do?
So then I make it a point to spend time with the women that I'm decided to work with. So I'll tell you a little bit about the project that I'm doing. I ended up realizing that there's not a lot of emphasis which is placed on preventive healthcare, and I also wanted to work on women empowerment. So at the intersection of both, I ended up working on women. So through the very active SHG groups in the village.
Self-help group.
Correct. So there's 17 active self-help groups in Hakchang. 17, yeah, which is very, very impressive. So through them, I started propagating very basic healthy habits. And for example, when you go to the field, which is a 2 hours walk away, you don't drink water directly from the streams, but I ended up procuring a filter, a small portable filter, which I ended up then distributing to 100 households so that they can drink that water, so that it leads to lesser cases of diarrhea and all of these things. So that's what I make it a point to spend more time with, and just basic behavioral changes as well. And because behavior changes takes a lot of time, therefore I need to have a very proper touch with them and a proper contact with them, and just a reminder at all times.
Okay. So why 17? Can you name some of the different projects they are doing? 17.
Yeah. So there's 17 SHG groups, and initially this was started by just rupees 5 or 10, but now the total collection, each member. So now the total collection of it is in lakhs. And the thing is, at any time, if a person needs money and they are a member of the group, they can very well, the woman can go ahead and take a loan from that group. It's very nice because they don't have to go to banks now or take money from somebody who might be exploitative. So that has not just led to economic empowerment, but also social empowerment. So most of these women, I think almost all of these women, have never gone to an institutional school, so to say. But the point in time that now they are handling so much amount of money, the amount of respect which is given by people in general has also increased.
We have talked about your routine, your schedule, and what about a routine of a typical farmer in a village? What his family does?
Honestly, this was one of the most surprising things that I saw, because people here end up waking up so early and they have lunch at 8 a.m. And that was such a massive culture shock for me, because I used to have breakfast at 10 and now they're having lunch so early in the morning. And because after that they need to go to the field, so they will have rice so early in the morning. And in the evening, because sunset also happens quite early, so around 4 o'clock sunset happens, so they have dinner around 4:30. And this was a very, very wild concept for me, because I am somebody who was used to the city life, and I would end up sleeping late and then waking up late. Therefore, I had to adjust my schedule according to the villagers so that I can also interact with them. So I started eating at that same time as well, and now I can say that at 9 a.m. in the morning, I am also craving rice every day. So now I have started understanding the Naga culture inside me as well through food.
I see. And so after having lunch, what do they do?
Yeah, so after having lunch, they end up going to the fields, and most of the people in Hakchang just do sustenance farming. So
that is for themselves only?
Just for themselves. And they don't put any cash crops. They just have crops which they produce using jhum cultivation. But the thing is that they work really, really hard, but they just end up making things for themselves. And they don't end up selling it anywhere. So, for example, if they leave for the field at 8 a.m. in the morning, it's a 2-hour walk away, because the fields are at a different hill than the hill that the Hakchang is located at. So they need to cross a river and then they go all the way. So I will tell a funny incident about this. The family that I stay with, the father is 62 years old. I am 26. And I got so tired in going to the field, but he was so active and he had so much more stamina that I started feeling ashamed. And there I see people 110 years old also who go to the field every single day, and it's become such a massive part of their lives, also owing to the healthy food that they eat, owing to the organic items that they have around themselves, as opposed to us who live in cities, who breathe in polluted air. Therefore, there's a massive difference that in life expectancy also that we see.
That is true. That is true. And so, like, you've been to the field, right?
Yes.
So what are the typical crops they grow besides rice, paddy, and what else?
So usually what they're growing is ginger at times, and of course it's very, chili also. It's very seasonal also. So in addition to that, what they end up doing is that they also have ponds just beside to the paddy field, and they have fishes there. But again, as I said, most of them don't end up selling it, and most of them just, it's done for their personal consumption.
So in the village, is there any, does anybody sell produce from their own garden, field?
Very less, and those transactions also happen very informally, because mostly the two shops which exist in the village, they get things from the town. So they bring the things from Tuensang town, and at that point is only when they end up selling it.
Okay. Flour, oil, or what else in the shop?
So just basic things like milk powder, because tea is such an important part of the culture. And again, something I was very surprised by, because people, if they're working, they will end up drinking 6-7 cups of tea every single day. And this was very surprising to me, because when I saw that there is no concept of milk, there's no concept of fresh milk, I assumed that people might not be drinking that much tea. But then black tea is such an important part of the Naga culture.
That is right. That is true. Every event, everything, every work, black tea.
Yeah, very important.
And they also socialize, talk to one another, right?
Correct. So it's something like, if people have come together and they're sitting and talking, they will of course end up having tea. So I also now have tea, because now I'm also offered tea, and I of course end up doing that.
So initially perhaps you're taking more coffee, but
Yeah, of course. Now I have properly almost become like a Naga.
Okay. What were some of the key challenges you experienced? Your work is on the preventive healthcare for women, right? So what were some of the challenges you faced?
So the first challenge, as I previously mentioned, was the language problem, because these are things that need to be explained technically as well. So that was the first problem that I faced. The second problem that I faced was that in something such as health, the benefits only show up in the long term. So it's difficult for people to get them to change habits, something which they've been doing for a lot of years, because the outputs of that they'll only be able to see in, let's say, after a lot of months. So that was the second problem. The third problem was some sort of closed-mindedness towards these Western medicines, or just not wanting to take medicines or which are prescribed by doctors.
How is it?
Yeah. So because a lot of times people have a lot of faith on the local remedies, and of course local remedies are also great, but they can coexist along with the ones which are given by these medicines. So there is a PHC close to Hakchang, which is
what's
Longbang.
PHC?
PHC, Primary Healthcare Center, is located in Longbang, which is around 15 minutes from Hakchang. But the thing is that if somebody gets hurt, they will just end up putting sugar on it, or they'll put leaves on it, rather than missing the entire day of work. And then crushed sugar, because that helps stop the bleeding. So they would end up doing that rather than going to the PHC and then missing an entire day of work, which does make sense. So then I pivoted, and then I started talking about how basic things which they can do by themselves. So usage of first aid kits, or usage of bandages and wound care which they can do by themselves, so that they also don't have to miss an entire day of work.
Do you have an idea of how many people have passed, say, like class 10? How many people have passed, graduated, done masters? Have an idea?
I'll tell you the current statistics, what is going on in the school. So the high school, this batch only had 6 class 10 students. Out of those 6 also, only 2 used to come to attend school properly. That's the situation. So a lot of times there's a lot of leaves which the teachers take, and there's no proper accountability as well in the village school. That's why one of the most aspirational things that people want to do is be able to send their kids to the nearest town, or send their kids to Dimapur or Kohima, because they know that education will be better there and accountability will be better there. So the problem is that there isn't proper accountability which is placed in the villages, in the government high school and the government primary school.
I see. Oh, so both the institutes are government run?
Yes, there's no private
There's
school.
no private.
There's no private school in Hakchang.
Oh,
There's only one government school.
And also the teachers, some of them stay in the village, or they come from...
Some of them come from outside as well, who have gotten posting and who are belonging to another villages, but some of them also stay in the village.
Right. Changsang, you are aware that every Naga tribe has that concept of a morong, right? Where the youngsters are placed in a hut, in a dormitory, and they learn from the elders. So like we did a documentary many years back in Tuensang, and we went to villages like Konya and Chingmei and others. So there we saw that this dormitory system was being in another form of the dormitory system started by the ECS was the Sochum thing. So where the youngsters were stayed in the dormitory, and then they were taught by the other teachers or whoever is in charge, right? So is there a similar dormitory system in Hakchang?
Construction. These are being donated from the community. Again, the roof of the sojam. These are donated from the VDB village councils and all. Again, these are the crafts that they have made. Again, these are the handicrafts, weaving, knitting, and all. These are made by the sojumers.
Yes, there is one Sochum in Hakchang, and the very, very good thing about that is that it provides a very nice culture for people, for the students. So it's not a replacement for schools. So this is an addition to the schools. So because the thing is, the problem which was identified was that because the parents end up going to the fields and the children are left alone at home, so there isn't a lot of accountability. Right. So if all the kids are brought together, so for example in the Sochum of Hakchang, there's both girls and boys, and there's one warden who ends up taking care of them and who has proper study hours fixed for them, and they sit together in sort of a room which has become their study space. So they will study, and then beyond that they'll also have extracurriculars. So for example, they'll have drawing competitions. There was World Environment Day recently. They had a drawing competition on the basis of that. So it's a lot of holistic development and not just focusing on education.
Right. So there is a warden, and also the perhaps ECS is maintaining it?
Yes, yes.
Okay. From your observation in your activities and all, what has been your observation about the most pressing need for the rural community there? Some of the pressing needs.
I think one of the most pressing needs, specifically in Eastern Nagaland, is the lack of diverse livelihood opportunities, because a lot of other things get related to that, right? Education, health, all of these things are linked to livelihood. The problem there is that people end up looking at agriculture as one option or government exams as the other option. Only two options. So there's so many youth who end up leaving the villages and then spend years preparing for, let's say, NPSC or other government examinations, in which the selection rate is of course very, very low. The number of seats are very low. So after spending all of those years, a lot of times they come back to the village and they end up again starting agriculture. So some simple small things such as an entrepreneurial spirit or business or very, very small things which can be done in their towns itself. They don't even have to go somewhere very far. If those things can be started, that will be very, very helpful.
So what do you foresee and what do you suggest would be good in order to fill this gap?
Giving people more role models that they can relate to. So, for example, if role models are shown from mainland India, they will not be able to have too much of a relatability to them. Therefore, at the point when they see role models based off in Nagaland and people who set up, there's wonderful businesses which have been set up by women in Dimapur and in Kohima. So when examples...
not only the towns, but even in the smaller towns as well as even the village itself, right?
Yes. Right. So those examples can end up helping a lot, and then tell people that only government exam isn't one option. There's so many other things as well that can also provide the same sort of satisfaction that you might end up getting after, let's say, you end up cracking a government exam.
I should say a good positive development is that many youngsters, young men from Tuensang district, they also go to towns. They get jobs as either electricians, carpenters, or even those people who lay the fiber optic cables, throughout the towns and cities. And so jobs like these, they've been taking up. So they are learning some skills like that. So at least they are making some money, even stone masonry, they do stone work and stuff like that. So that is a good thing. But again, like you said, some of them come back, they don't do anything, or they are not able to find avenues to do anything. So like you said, I think it's very important that entrepreneurs, successful ones from smaller towns or even in the village themselves, they go and show something, have a role model, like you said. So again, it just struck me because we have the Business Association of Nagaland or other entrepreneurs who are there, group of entrepreneurs. They could perhaps, go out to the village and show what could be done also, or, like featuring some successful entrepreneur who has done well in certain village, so that it can be applied to another village, right? 100%. Okay, cool. I mean, we knew a little bit about this, but you are reminding us of the need, so that's very important. Yeah, thank you. And so, talking about the language, how important was learning the language in establishing trust with the community?
Very, very important, because I remember the thing that I would hear the most from the villagers was "Nyak shao galo," which translates to "Have you eaten food?" And then if I'd say
Most important for every
most
Naga.
important, yeah, most important. And this was also so sweet because every time somebody is asking me this, if I say no, they will invite me to their home and they will want to feed me. So this is the first thing that I ended up learning after good morning and good night. Now, what ended up happening was that because I was working with the women of Hakchang, and a lot of the women have not gone outside the village, so they just converse in Chang. And I wanted to be able to talk to them in their own language, so that there isn't some sort of an external imposition which they feel. Therefore, the moment in time I started learning the language, there was so much encouragement that I got from the community themselves. I remember the first time I said a full sentence in Chang, I could hear claps of women and men all around. They were so happy that somebody has put in the effort to learn the language, and that ended up giving, I think that was sort of my breakthrough. That is the point in time when I actually realized that now I am being accepted by the community, and the community is actually looking forward to whatever I have to say.
Ah, that's great. That's actually very surprising and amazing because, you know, like we have youngsters in Nagaland now who don't know how to speak their own languages also. They only mostly speak Nagamese or English and very less of their language. So, and then again, many of them, or even our own people, we find it hard to learn the language of another tribe, you know. So, I mean, like, that's, just by somebody teaching you as well as you being right there in the village, and it's very inspiring. It's very inspiring. We are glad that also people from the village, they have accepted a person who is from outside the village. And so another important question, having lived in different places in India, mainland India, and then in Nagaland also, you have been in Hakchang, and what are the some misconceptions which people from mainland, from India as well as commonly have about Nagaland and Northeast, which you would like to change or perhaps even challenge?
The first thing that I've observed is that people don't even know the proper difference between the 7 different states, and they end up considering it as very similar to each other, but it is absolutely not that. The culture is so rich in every single one of these states. The second thing which I realized, I was in Delhi University and it had a lot of population from the Northeast, and I remember I had some students from Nagaland as well, and I thought, okay, they are the representatives of Nagaland, but when I came to Nagaland, I realized that they belong to some tribes, and there's 17 tribes, and there's such a massive difference between the tribes as well. So Nagaland is also not a monolith. Nagaland also has such massive differences in it. So the first thing that I really need the mainland Indians to understand is the massive amount of learning that they can get from here. There's so many things on a day-to-day basis that I see here. The importance of community, because now people in the mainland, be it in villages or be it in cities, people have become very self-consumed. So people end up thinking a lot about themselves. But here, the moment something happens, community is the first thing. So for example, there's a lot of posts like the student union president, or there's a lot of posts like the village council chairman, etc., etc. There's a lot of bodies which exist. Now, a lot of those posts are absolutely not paid. They're entirely voluntarily. And I was so surprised when I initially heard that, because people in mainland India will not want to do things unless they're being paid for it. And I asked, why do you do this? And they said, for the community. And it was such a simple answer, but that was such an impactful answer. And I remember going back that day and talking to my friends on call and then telling them and breaking these myths that there's so many things that we can learn from mainland India. The next thing was that people just have a lot of times just this perception of whatever tribal dresses that they've seen, that everybody just wears that dress all the time. And when I sent them videos of the Christmas celebration, people also ended up being surprised, oh, this is how it's being celebrated. So I think people also need to be a little more curious. I have also realized that a lot of these mainstream journalists, they just end up covering Northeast when something like violence happens. So they don't end up covering the day-to-day lives of people from the northeast.
Very much.
People from Manipur are being covered right now because there's protests going on there and there's violence which has erupted. But the day-to-day lives, there's so much to be covered about that in mainstream media which doesn't get covered.
That is right. That is something which we are also aware of, but the framing is done by outside perspective only, and then we are not able to frame our own stories.
Yeah.
And also, that's right, there's a big thing over there, but we won't go deep into that. And so like living in the village and what other community values, even here also we have a neighboring Kohima village in the city of Kohima. So here also there's a lot of community bonding, as well as in the sense when a funeral happens, somebody dies, then everybody comes, and also the pitches need to help, even not only relatives but other people.
Yeah.
So just a while back I attended one funeral.
Yeah.
So like community bonding and also relationships are very strong. Whenever there is for example, a village council meeting or a students union meeting, do you also involve there?
Yeah. So I was so surprised to see that one of the most commonly used words in Hakchang is meeting, because every Sunday there'll be so many meetings which will be happening. Because Sunday church happens, and that's the day when people don't go to the field, and there's so many meetings which keep happening. So there's the church board meeting, there's SHG meetings, there's meetings of the student union, the village council, and there's so many meetings which keep happening between the women, between the youth, between the men.
I see.
So that leads to the fact that Government of India talks a lot about decentralization. This is the perfect example of decentralization, because the power is coming to the people, and the people at the ground level are making the actual decisions about what should be done, about their situations. So it is sort of a consensus in which people come together, rather than there being a top-down approach, rather than, let's say, just a bureaucrat sitting in an AC office and then deciding what should be done in so-and-so area.
So regarding livelihood and doing local business, there is a kind of like they have to get over that.
Initial, yeah. They're like, this is not part of our culture only. So, the very funny thing is that there is the one shop which is there, which is run in Hakchang, is run by somebody from UP.
Okay.
He's a Gupta ji. So people are like, these are things which only people from mainland can do. We don't have that skill only. Which is not true.
A huge gap, which they have to overcome and also get to know about, right?
Yeah.
Like during your 8 months here in Nagaland and Tuensang, have you attended any cultural functions?
Oh yes. I remember one of my fondest memories of Hakchang is attending Ponglam. And I attended Ponglam both in Hakchang as well as in Tuensang. And I have some pictures from that as well. And this is me wearing the shawls from that time, from the community which had been gifted to me.
Which month is that?
January. And what happened as a result of Ponglam was that it was very close to, let's say, Christmas, right? Christmas, New Year. So population of the village almost doubled, because all the children who had gone outside, all of them would come back. Yes. So it was like a celebration every single day. There were football tournaments, there were volleyball tournaments, there were so many things happening in the village every single day, right from Christmas to Ponglam. So every single day there was something new that I was learning about the village. That is one thing. Now another thing that I attended in Nagaland was the Hornbill Festival, because
that was in December.
Yes,
right.
That was in December. So we traveled to Kisama and we ended up attending Hornbill.
You went with some friends?
Yes, but the thing is that I realized that we were getting more of a cultural exposure back in the village, because I was living in the village, and this seemed like a trailer to and it didn't seem that in depth, because it was trying to cover a lot of things for the mainland Indians.
You went with some Naga friends or some other friends?
No, some other friends.
Okay. In your time in different places and also in Delhi, you have been interacting with people from the Northeast, and you have seen the way they interact with others, as well as the way other citizens of our country interact with one another, with them also. Based on your experiences here, what are the lessons or other observations you have you can share?
This is something that breaks my heart absolutely, because I have stayed in Delhi and I have been witness to so much racial attacks which people from the Northeast had to face. There were so many cases recently of people from the Northeast not being treated well. It's such a massive difference from, for example, what I have been facing here. I was also a person from mainland. I was also a person foreign to the people here, foreign to their language, but I was accepted so well. As I talked about, I was given a name, which is such an important name for them. And I was properly accepted even though there were language differences. But when people from Nagaland are going to, let's say, Delhi for search of better opportunities in terms of livelihood or in terms of exposure or education, it is extremely, extremely unfortunate that people have these multiple stereotypes and people just judge on the basis of those stereotypes and then don't even interact with people. Because there's so many things that you will get to know and so many rich cultures that you will get to know if you interact with people, if you just overcome that initial barrier. Because once you overcome that initial barrier, you will get to know more and more about Northeast culture.
The people who also mistreat other people or like practicing racism, these are not a majority, right? These are a minority, ill-informed or uneducated minority also. And it's also the Northeast people, but also other foreigners, also other people who experience this kind of a thing. Is it something which can be changed, or what do you think? Because India is also growing by leaps and bounds, supposed to be becoming a modern country, but if such things remain, then they can't go forward, right? Yeah. In one way, so it will be held back. So what would be your, suggestions or observations?
Northeast is such an important part of India's story that until and unless Northeast is also properly included in the development, the country can never be developed entirely. Therefore, the perspectives that come from Northeast are something that should be properly valued in everything, in terms of policy making, in terms of policy implementation, in terms of execution, but also personal, one-to-one relationships. So the moment you get over this initial hesitation of the unknown, you can get to know so much more about such a different culture. So, for example, if in a normal interaction, which you've been able to do with a person from the Northeast back in Delhi, there's so many things that you can get to know about the easternmost part of the country, which you probably wouldn't have gotten to know otherwise because things are not too well documented about a certain region. So, one-to-one conversations can end up telling you so much more.
India has got a huge population, right? Yeah. So, millions of people who are, many of them are still very backward in terms of thinking how should we people promote more of interaction? Plus, how can we overcome this tendency to do racism by some ill-informed or ignorant people, right? Even the government, like you said, they are also aware of the importance of Northeast. Yes. They have, we have the Look East policy, which is supposed to go through Northeast to Southeast Asia. Yes. And also there's a lot of development in certain states. But there's still a lot to be done, but still then to be positive is also good. We Northeast also have to be more positive in doing things as well as in interacting with our own countrymen, fellow citizens. And so any thoughts?
Yeah. So the first and the most important thing is to start early. So because people's perceptions get changed and fixed a lot during school time. So if we start from the school time itself, educating the kids about the different cultures of Northeast, so that when they actually encounter a person from the Northeast, they have some sort of background context. That is the first thing which should be done. The second thing is a proper interaction which should happen in the spaces where people from different cultures exist, because the natural human tendency is just to stay within their comfort zones. So for example, people from a certain state will probably end up staying with the same kind of people in a new city as well. And it's not their fault. It's because our brain prefers familiarity and prefers comfort. So the point in time when institutions like schools and colleges make it a point to have interactions between people from different communities, and they sort of force these interactions, that will still be very beneficial, because at that point you will end up going out of your comfort zone, and any sort of growth only happens when you go out of your comfort zone. So that is the second thing which should be done. Third thing is in terms of the culture. So there's so many cultural things. So for example, I did not know anything about Poanglam festival before I came here and witnessed all of it. So through things like pop culture, through things like TV series, through things like movies, in movies, we shouldn't portray people from the Northeast as some sort of a joke or some sort of a person on whose expense a joke is being said, but should rather be focused on so much rich community which exists in Nagaland or in other northeastern states as well.
Yes, in the third point, some developments have been going on, like some movies have been done, as well as people are slowly getting familiar with Northeast musicians, Northeast actors, and even what you call Northeast sports persons. So in a way, like people of India are also getting familiar with Northeast faces and culture slightly, but still there's lots to be done. So anyways, we'll go back to your story.
Okay, sure.
Your experience in the village, regarding your experience in the village, what impact would you like your work to have to leave behind in Hakchang?
I would like the impact to be not focused on an individual, but coming through the community themselves. So it shouldn't be that Changsang said so and so. It should be that my friend said so and so. So because the moment in time when community gets empowered, it's more sustainable than an external imposition, because if we do it according to an external stimuli, as long as that is there, the change will continue, but the moment we take that away, the change will also stop. But the point in time when we empower the communities and we end up making these things, and this is one problem that people do. People end up just assuming that, oh, these are villagers, so maybe they'll not understand. They are very, very smart, and you should consider them to be smart and properly explain the reasons behind certain things. So just don't tell them that so and so should be done. Tell them the reasons behind why it should be done. That's the point in time when they will talk about this in informal conversations as well, and that's the point in time when this will become sustainable as opposed to being something which is very short term.
Okay, that's good. After your work here and your interaction, your life in the village ends, what would you value to carry back with you, no? And what would you, for the perhaps memories, or what is it that you would like to carry back with you?
I'll start with a very, very funny thing that keeps happening with me all the time. The women of the village have one complaint with me. They keep telling me that, okay, fine, whatever work you're doing is fine, but what we want you to do is don't leave in November. We will get married, we'll get you married to a Chang girl, and you stay back here. And that's what they say, that because that is the level of acceptance that have been given from the community. So what I would take back is that accepting somebody who might be entirely different from you. That is the first thing that I've realized. And this entire experience has made me so much more patient. And living here within the community for an entire year has turned me into a person who ends up valuing very, very small things as well. And therefore, I have become a person who doesn't end up dismissing the values of, let's say, interpersonal interactions. So something as small as, let's say, sitting down and having a cup of tea might have a massive impact and a long-term impact. Therefore, I have started valuing these small things as well.
Finally, what message would you like to share with other young people who would perhaps be interested to visit rural communities like Hakchang and from outside, people who come?
I did a degree in mathematics, and most of my classmates ended up doing an MBA and then joining corporates. I knew that that will not give me satisfaction. Now that I work in the development sector and that I work in the social sector, the amount of satisfaction which I get can never be measured by any amount of money which any other field would have provided. Therefore, my message would be that if you're able to make the life of even one person better, that is an impact worth having. And that is something, that is a goal which is absolutely worth going after. So you should go ahead and whatever is in your capacity, it doesn't have to be something at a huge scale. Even if it is at a very small scale, if you make the life of somebody better by even a small percentage, that matters a lot.
That is very true for all of us. We also who work in media, we want to make an impact to many lives, but still then it's the individual out there who matters. The young person who is watching us, we hope that he or she gets benefited, and especially the village of Hakchang who has adopted you. Thank you so much for your time.
Additionally, just one more thing. We can cut this. So sometimes people have this wrong perception that, oh, I will go to the village and I will teach them so and so. I myself have learned so many things from the village. Therefore, there are so many things that I am carrying back with me after having spent all of this time there. Hakchang has taught me so many things. Tuensang has taught me so many things, not just the Chang tribe, because throughout my time there, I ended up interacting with so many other tribes as well. I went to so many other districts. I went to Changlangshu, Monyakshu, Mon, Mokokchung, all of these places. And every single person that I met with in Nagaland has taught me something new. Therefore, we should end up giving that amount of importance to every single person, because we never know what they might end up teaching us.
Well, that has been very informative for all of us, and we hope for our viewers too. Thank you so much for coming and talking to us. All the best to you in your work and career over the future life.
Thank you so much.